Yeah.
I can't be like this. Okay. Okay, welcome to another episode of the Charlie West Wrestling Show. I am the host, Charlie West, and I'm here with Tony and Ozzy. And we are here today to talk about the favourite tag teams of all time.
Top 10.
Yeah, top 10. These are our favourite tag teams. Two-man teams, not factions.
Favorite or the best?
I think I have a mixture of both.
Yeah.
Some of these are certainly not objectively the best wrestling tag teams out there, but they're people that I love.
Yeah.
But I think it's however you interpret it. And speaking of interpretations, Ozzy, what did you have for your number 10?
For you, Charlie, the Young Bucks.
But we're doing the best.
Okay, let me explain where...
Did you not get the memo? These are not the worst tag teams. These are the best.
They might not be, they're not your favorite, but what they did, though, over the last few years is really put tag team wrestling back on the map. Whether you like them or not, the Young Bucks became the most famous tag team over the last couple of years. They are, and they actually got people more interested in tag team wrestling. And if it wasn't for them, would we have AEW? So whether you like them or not, however long AEW lasts, it's a thing right now. So the Young Bucks are actually going to be historically important to wrestling.
Yeah. I am not a fan of the Young Bucks wrestling. Big fan of their character work. Big fan of like their heel work. I've watched a couple of matches that I've really enjoyed.
And they do have some matches that are good.
I do agree that like they're probably one of the biggest things that happens to tag team wrestling in the past
10 years.
10, 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, they're just huge.
They got people talking about tag team wrestling again. And
you can't do it.
We got AEW. You don't like their style, and sometimes they do a lot of annoying shit. But at the end of the day, they got
jump over a person and say, "I jumped over you. You're dead now." It's like live action role play more than it is wrestling.
They got people talking, and half the time that's hard to do in wrestling these days. So the Young Bucks, especially over the last decade.
Never thought I'd hear myself say this, but Tony, can you talk some sense, please?
I'm probably going to upset you even more now with my number 10. Two-man power trip.
It's not a tag team.
Was Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, but you call that a tag team?
They were great to watch.
Like, I think it was awesome. Yeah, but I don't know if I classify that as a tag team.
They had enough matches. They were going to be before Triple H's injury.
They were the tag team champs, weren't they?
So, yeah. So before Triple H got his injury and cut it down from what was going to be a long run to a shorter run. It was only a short run. They were amazing. They had a match with Undertaker and Kane where they were it was for all the belts, and they did this thing where they just grabbed the belts and just started walking down the aisle saying we're not having any part of this. They were just classic 80s heels.
Yeah.
They took 80s tag team wrestling and try to bring it to the
I'll give you that one because it's only your number 10, but they're not technically a tag team. They were just two top guys they put together and put the belts on.
I reckon they'd have had a bigger run.
I think there's a lot to be said by taking your two top guys, putting them together and putting belts on them.
Yeah, but they don't tag teams should have a name and a gimmick together, and they should have music.
A name, like Two-Man Power Trip, for example.
That's not. They didn't. Were they announced as that, or was it just Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H with their separate entrances?
Did they come out together? I can't remember if they came out together, but they did have the whole Two-Man Power Trip thing. It was a whole 4-month thing that happened, and then Jericho.
Yeah,
fair enough. But anyway,
I don't classify.
We need to get this list on the right track by actually picking some of the 10 best tag teams.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear it, Charlie.
Well, I mean, like I say, we go subjective, objective. So objectively, the 10th best tag team of all time are Rick and Scott, the Steiner Brothers.
All right, not a bad one. Yeah,
there we are.
Okay,
both as a ability in the ring and the character and charisma that they bring to matches.
And they lasted a really long run.
Yeah,
but those guys felt like a tag team.
Yes,
and that's how Rick was around before that.
Yeah,
but that's what brought Scott Steiner in, was that team.
And they could do both things. You could bring in other real wrestlers in, and you could have a wrestling clinic.
Yeah.
Or you could bring someone like the Quebecers in, and they could do the whole chicken shit heels will work that style of nonsense.
They were tag team champs in WCW and in WWF.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steiners. They're the classic tag team.
Quality matches with Miracle Violence Connection with Dr. Death Strange and Terry Gordy.
Right.
Steve Williams and Terry Gordy. Is it Terry Gordy? Might be Terry. Yeah.
Big
Cowboy.
Where was that in WCW or just
WCW?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and Japan as well.
Yeah.
They have
Also, the moves they were breaking out, like, especially Rick, like, especially Scott. Scott was doing Frankenstein, did a 450, like arguably the inventor of the 450.
He did a 450.
Scott Steiner is arguably the earliest recorded 450 in wrestling. Is Scott Steiner?
Well, maybe in America.
No, just
probably
full
someone.
stop.
You don't think someone was doing that in Mexico?
Not on video, like not recorded.
Yeah, and the suplexes and stuff. Like I remember reading Foley's book when Foley was a jobber. If you had to work against the Steiners, you were just getting tossed around. They were inventing suplexes on the spot, and they hurt.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
Steiners are good.
Tony, number 9.
Number 9, I have Edge and Christian.
Fair enough.
E&C. Classic.
Yeah. It definitely got Edge to that next level.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like one of those tag teams, like even though there clearly was when they broke up, it felt like one of those rare tag teams where there wasn't a Jannetty, right? It felt like one where like both of these guys have got singles upside to them in the future.
Yeah, exactly. You could always tell Edge was the guy that was
it always
that
been
they
a
wanted
superstar,
to.
but it wasn't like this guy is here to basically be the opening feud when they break up and then disappear.
Yeah, well, and that also shows Christian's skill that he's had such an amazing career after that.
Do I want to ask for number 9 or?
It flows really well with Edge and Christian because it's the Dudley Boys.
Okay.
You know, they were of that time, right?
Yeah.
And they were big in ECW, but what they did when they came to WWF is they were the ones who really brought the tables. Right? And, you know, tables might get overused. You might not always love tables, but tables are cool in wrestling. And the Dudleys were the ones that really brought that. And those amazing TLC matches, that made tag team wrestling. Tag team wrestling was, you know, it was really
on down.
Yeah, big time. And
that showed how much you could make a tag team division feel like a main event caliber thing with only 3 teams.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Even though there are other guys in, it's like you don't need a lot.
Yeah.
Like you just need to pick 6 guys and have them just fucking bring
the way
down.
those guys work together. And the Dudley Boys, they had a really long run.
Yeah.
Right? So they're definitely one of the biggest tag teams in the history of wrestling.
That's fair. So I think it's only fair that we've had Edge and Christian, we've had the Dudleys. So of course, to round off I'm not doing that. That's not my number 9. But my number 9 is a member of a number of factions, like a big member of DX back in the time, like one of the big talkers, a former King of the Ring winner is part of this tag team. It is, of course, the Smoking Guns.
What?
The Smoking Guns, Billy and Bart Gunn. I loved them as a kid. They were fantastic. I loved them so much when they were fighting the Head Shrinkers, when they were fighting
He was going New Age Outlaws, and he just worked us there. You thought he was going New Age Outlaws?
Yeah. Billy and Bart Gunn. Best tag team Billy's been in.
Okay.
Easily.
All right.
Wonderful. They were cowboys. They did the old lasso thing.
All right.
I just feel like, you know, it'd be nice if they invited Bart onto AEW once in a while, be part of the family again.
It's funny seeing him get knocked out. He's good at that.
But no, I love the Smoking Guns. They were one of those people, like one of my childhood favorites.
Okay. All right. Good one.
Okay, do you want to do number 8?
Number 8. Okay, this one is a double entry just because we need to mention these 2 teams, I feel. And I didn't grow up watching them. I didn't watch Southern Wrestling in the early to mid 80s, but these 2 tag teams were huge. The Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express.
I was about to say, is it one of Cornette's?
Yeah, and Cornette was like a central figure in what made the Midnight Express what they were. They had like a 7 or 8 year run. There was 2 iterations of the Midnight Express too.
Yeah.
Like Stan Lane joined and Dennis Condrey left it.
Yes.
So they were still able to make that act last. And a lot of it was Cornette. Like Bobby Eaton was considered a really good wrestler, but he kind of looked like a moron. He had his pants pulled up to his nipples. He had a mullet.
That was the time back then, right? Wasn't it? Like you had like managers for tag teams. Like they would be
they're
like managing the team.
Right.
And Cornette was the best. Like I think I saw just recently Ric Flair saying that like if they had to change the mouthpiece for the 4 Horsemen, the only person he would have gone to was Cornette.
I can see that.
Like to be the other one. Because like whether you like him or hate him, and he says a lot that can make people hate him.
I mean, that was his role.
But he also knows how to get people to hate him just by talking wrestling in a wrestling ring.
Exactly.
Perfectly.
Yeah, and those 2 teams back in the territories, they would once the territory, say so the Midnight Express would go somewhere, start getting popular, and then the Rock and Roll Express would go there. And then their feud went on for 5-6 years all over different territories in the States, and they drew massive money everywhere they went. So those were two really, really important tag teams in the history of wrestling.
I think that's a really good call.
And the Rock and Roll Express, if you look at them, especially it's so dated, right? Their hairdos look so fucking dumb. But they were kind of like that first pretty boy tag team.
Yeah.
And you can see the early Rockers basically look exactly like them. The Bucks. The Bucks say that the Rock and Roll Express really influenced them.
And they're still going now, right? They're literally doing their farewell tour this year.
Yeah, I think so. One of them is.
Yes.
Yeah. But they had such a run. So
crazy.
those two teams, especially for anyone who watched that, early, the Southern NWA stuff, they'd be losing their mind if we didn't mention them. They're probably not even high enough.
No, I understand. Yeah, definitely.
Let's put them in here.
So Tony, I'm guessing you're about to bring us kicking and screaming back into the 21st century?
Kind of. Probably a bit sooner. APA, Acolytes.
Okay.
Just a whole lot of fun. Farouk and Bradshaw, two people that before the Acolytes were going nowhere. Farouk had his big blue helmet on. Bradshaw was just
an asshole.
He just had
he always.
Was that when he was the new Blackjacks?
Yeah. It was that new Blackjack gimmick. But then together they were just a bunch of. It was more when they became the Acolyte Protected.
And they'd be smoking cigars and drinking beer.
And then they'd come down to the ring and still
and their music was good. It fit their character. Yeah, they were a good team. Mm. That's probably the only iteration of Bradshaw that I don't vomit in my mouth when I see. Yeah.
Okay, so my number 8 is probably the only women's tag team that we're going to mention today. But I just really like them. They're good. They're one of what I think is one of the best comedy teams out there. One of the best comedy things. It's the Iconics.
Yeah, you love them.
They are really good though. They really made.
Yeah, on every show. It's where can I put the Iconics on my list?
They're great. Tom sometimes does it as well. Tom is on Team Iconic.
Okay, awesome. Should we move on to the next one? I think you've covered the Iconics enough for more than any other. He talks about them more than WWF ever did.
Yeah. Outrageous. Okay, carry on.
I don't even know who's in their team. I don't even know.
Billy Kay and Peyton Royce.
Are they even still wrestlers?
No,
I think
they've been fired, haven't they?
Yeah, they got fired.
Yeah, they're in TNA.
What a great tag team.
No, they're not in TNA.
They were for a bit. They were the champions in TNA.
Oh, wow, what an iconic tag team.
Peyton Royce is pregnant, I think.
Huh. Makes sense. Okay, so
Number 7.
Number 7,
I've got Brothers of Destruction, Kane, Undertaker. Many different iterations, though. I've always liked them two together.
They have a team name, so I'm kind of okay with it. But again, they're not
They were champions, tag team champions. They had an entrance together.
Yeah, and it was pretty epic. Yeah,
and there was the bit where they always did the thing where after the match they both hold their hands up and stuff.
Yeah, I give you that.
It's more like Mask Kane than Glenn Jacobs Kane, Dad Kane
for sure.
Dad Kane. But, yeah,
I hate Unmasked Kane.
I don't like Unmasked Kane. I just keep the mask on. But yeah, they were
how did that guy become a politician with that face? God.
It's just how it happens. Anyway, let's not talk politics. Let's talk number 7.
Okay, number 7. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with this one. Maybe just that they're a bit too low. The Hardy Boys. I think the Hardy Boys were... Yeah, they're in that whole thing with Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys. And I would say the Hardys, probably the best of that bunch. Maybe not the best wrestlers, but that whole...
I think the whole delete Young Bucks, they've done so much for tag team wrestling after WWE as
and
well.
how long they lasted. Right?
I mean those three original TLC teams, they've all lasted a really long time, and I think they're 3 teams that there was literally something for everyone, right?
Yeah.
That some people are going to be there and be like, the Hardy Boys are too low, the Hardy Boys are too high, the Hardy Boys are too right. Same with Edge and Christian, same with the Dudleys. Just depending on what kind of thing you're into, you're going to be the Dudleys person or the Hardys person.
And I would say the Dudleys were the ones that really introduced the tables, where ladders were already a thing in wrestling, but the Hardy Boys, especially Jeff Hardy, really took that to the next level.
I definitely think that.
And that entrance and everything, they, so many kids loved that. They made so many fans in that.
WrestleMania 33 when they came back, just
it was huge.
I was sat at home And I even was like,
yeah. From that early 2000s, the Hardy Boys really made a lot of WWE fans.
No, I get that. I mean, they're not on my list, but not because I disagree with them being on a list, just because when it comes to tag teams in the history of wrestling, there's just so many great tag teams out there that, some of them have to make way for others. So, for example, I can't have the Hardys, because if I have the Hardys, there's no room for Miz and Morrison. So,
is that your answer?
Number 7, The Miz and John Morrison.
Oh, God, you're such a mark. The Iconics and then Miz and Morrison?
They're wonderful. When they did the dirt sheet,
can do that doesn't have the Miz
and the Iconics. Holy fuck, Charlie.
The Miz and Morrison, when they were in ECW, they formed the dirt sheet. It was fantastic. Like, just the idea that these two egotistical guys, John Morrison brought the flashy moves, the Miz brought the mic skills, it really was just a really, really cool tag team. They came back a few times. They've worked together, worked some big programs with different people, and against Damian Priest and Bad Bunny.
Oh, that's a barn burner.
It was probably match of the night at that WrestleMania.
Yeah, everyone's going to be talking about that in 10 years.
They will be.
They won't. Okay, another Miz. You got the Miz on your list. You must be happy.
Well, I mean, we still got the Show Miz, and we still have.
No,
I'm leaving if you pick that one. Just
fine. Okay.
My number 6 is a repeat, so we'll just get that out of the way. It's the Hardys.
Okay,
fair
enough. Yeah.
Team Extreme.
Yeah.
Collectors of belts. Deletes everything. No, not the smoking guns. Just one of my cousin who hasn't watched wrestling in since he was 10 years old. He's not watched wrestling. When the Hardys came back, he sent me a message and was like, "The Hardys are back," and I was like,
"I'm gonna start watching." Hey, and I also saw the Iconics. Wow, I'm hooked now.
He was like, "The Hardys are back. I'm gonna watch that WrestleMania just to see the Hardys wrestle again."
Because that was his team, right? That's what they probably made him a fan back then.
They did. And I was like, "Yeah, the Hardys have been wrestling Ring of Honor." He's like, "No, none of that."
Right, and I think when the Hardys came in, they were that cool young team.
Yeah.
Right?
Jeff's first matches, he was wrestling illegally, right? He was lying about his age and saying
that was back when they were jobbers, I think.
Yes,
so.
yeah.
But even when they became the Hardy Boys, they were that cool young team of that early 2000s era.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of things that we'll have on our list where it's just a case of I didn't have room for everything.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, I got a bunch of those.
So, what about your number 6?
Number 6, Modern, and I think they are the best tag team in the world right now. They're way better than the Young Bucks, FTR, and they were good when they were in in NXT. They were amazing. Some of those matches they had with who was with Gargano. Those were awesome. I think what they're doing just now, I don't know if they're quite booked properly in AEW, but FTR matches. I'm watching those. They are, and who knows where they're going to go, right? They're still creating their legacy now. I think they're amazing.
Yeah, no, they definitely have a thing to them. For me, because I just find it so hard watching AEW, so I don't watch as much of the matches as other people are. Yeah. I can imagine that if I was watching more AEW, they feel like a team that I would actually enjoy watching, unlike most of the tag teams.
The matches that they've been doing in the new revamped ROH, I didn't put the Briscoes because I didn't watch ROH, so I don't know enough about the Briscoes to really throw them in. But the matches with FTR, they're awesome too. The Briscoes are really good. Yeah. So I'll just give them a shout out, but they're not on my list.
No, sometimes you see 1 or 2 matches because they're not from the territory, right? So that guy's really good, but maybe he pulled one freak match out of nowhere. Yeah. And
I think FTR's finish is awesome too.
Yeah. It's if you've only ever watched The Ultimate Warrior fight the Macho Man, you think, Ultimate Warrior, that's a guy that can go 20 minutes and give you 4 or 5-star matches. Yeah. And it's just not true. It's only true against that one.
That guy he's working with. Yeah. And that's the thing about the Bucks, right? The Bucks matches, they're usually only good if they're doing a Young Bucks match with a team that can do their style.
It's fair enough. So my number 6 is, we talked about how you don't like having tag teams with just 2 singles guys that are thrown together for no reason. This is a tag team that stayed around for 3 or 4 years, but they did originally come together because of just being 2 guys that literally, I think it was when Mick Foley was the Raw general manager. And I think literally the kayfabe story was we have nothing for each of you, so we're going to make each of you do a best of 7 match over the next 7 Raws and just fight each other, which is Sheamus and Cesaro.
The Bar.
And then they formed the Bar. And it was a thing at the time. It was like, why are they doing this? Why are they putting these people together? Who cares? But those two guys worked really well together. They had some fantastic... I know you're not that high on Sheamus.
I love the entrance as well.
But it was just such a really good... The entrance, the things... It revitalized Sheamus.
They took it and were like, okay, we're going to make this into like gold. Like, they're like, you've got nothing for us. You're going to force us into this tag team. And then they just like we're just going to be entertaining. Like every week, we're just going to be entertaining. Like,
and it was just, for me, I just thought that they are one of the best tag teams of the past 10 years.
I wouldn't put them that high, but like I would say, I had the Bar on the list at one point.
I forgot that they existed. So
fair enough.
Yeah. Wow. Top 10. If you forget they exist, but you've got Miz and Morrison and the Iconics on your list, so you're improving, Charlie.
He's raised the bar.
He's raising a very
I am the bar.
He's raising a very low, shitty bar.
Just wait for number 5. Wait for number 5, my friends. What's your number 5, Tony?
2 guys.
Oh,
big guys.
2 guys. Really?
Two big guys.
2 big guys. Big, buff guys.
Men on the mission.
One of them once called Hulk Hogan a very naughty word.
Oh yeah.
3-minute warning.
No.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
Oh, Harlem Heat. They're really good.
As a kid, like again, this list for me is just all like tag teams that just bring nostalgia. And Harlem Heat, I remember being sat in the front room, like
he wasn't doing that back then.
but I remember just like scissor kick,
and
like,
the music.
Just
I liked when they had Sherry too.
Yeah, Sherry was great. I remember like they come out and they do the.
I liked their gear and everything like that. The fire entrance, Harlem Heat.
And then it all culminated with a match to say who got the letter T.
No, that was Ahmed Johnson and Booker T. He came in as Big T, Tony Rhodes.
Okay.
Yeah. No. So your WCW history is just almost as good as your ECW.
Well, I just focus on the good stuff.
Yeah, and make up the rest.
Well, I mean, that's fun too.
Yeah. Okay, my number 5, you already mentioned actually, the Steiner Brothers.
There we are, see?
Yeah, because they're a classic tag team.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not 2 guys that got together for a month run and then everyone forgot they were.
So speaking of the fact that they sort of did their more collegiate, like shoot wrestling style in WWF and in WCW.
No, that started in WCW, doing that style.
So, but I mean, do you prefer them post, like latter on, or
just in general? They were a good team. You know, they sort of grew up together. Like their run as a tag team was probably close to 10 years.
Yeah,
they broke up, I think, in 98, maybe 98,
97, 98.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
It was Johnny NWO.
Yeah, right, and that's a good match. They had a Super Bowl.
They had Buff Bagwell with his fake neck. I've watched that recently, actually. It's a Super Bowl. Buff Bagwell had his pretend neck bracelet.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, yes, I actually remember that.
Yeah. Buff was an idiot, but that was a good run for him when he was Scott's Big Papa Pumps. Yeah, his second, that was good.
He did that whole thing where like he pretended to break his neck and then he was in the ambulance and then they came shooting out the ambulance with like Rick Steiner.
So, you talked about how maybe I'm not a big aficionado of the more extreme style of wrestling. This is possibly the most extreme tag team that we're going to mention on this list. And even though when I say the name, you're going to think
he's working this.
No, if you look at their stuff before WWF, it is the most bloody, brutal.
The Bushwhackers.
The Bushwhackers.
Oh my fucking God, Charlie. Let's just change the name of the show. Let's just change the name of the show and make another wrestling show without him.
The Bushwhackers were amazing. They were so fun.
Smoking Guns, the Iconics, and the Bushwhackers. This is number 5 for you as the
Bushwhackers.
Top 5 are the fucking Bushwhackers?
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. This is just
Charlie's. One thing about what we're doing here is the people that we like, the people that we think were good, and the Bushwhackers were around when I was like 7, and they were great. I wanted them to win every match. They would sometimes enter a Royal Rumble and just walk in a little circle and walk out again. It was wonderful.
Okay.
If you've got the headbangers, or was it
head shrinkers?
Head shrinkers. On your top 4 list, I'm closing this down.
I'm closing the studio. The Charlie West Wrestling Show is out of here. It maybe should be after this list.
Yeah.
We can make a new show.
Yeah. The top 4 you are going to be fine with, I think.
I hope so.
I fucking hope so, because the bottom of your list is absolutely abysmal.
Have you seen Sheepherder matches?
I've seen bits of them. Yeah, they're violent and everything like that.
Like Sheepherders versus the Fantastics, I think it was. Like, really
Yeah.
hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
But then they came to WWE and they were just, designed to be entertaining.
Yeah, I thought they were
Make their
funny when
money.
I was 5.
Yeah, but that's when I was watching them.
Yeah. But they're still not a top. They're not even close to a top 10 team.
Different metrics for different people. Bushwhackers, look them up. The best. So, number 4, we are moving on to Tony.
Yeah, this is probably going to annoy Ozzy based on his aversion to me just putting 2 singles guys together and
Okay.
calling them a team.
Okay.
The Mega Powers, Hogan and Savage. Like,
Okay, I'll give you a pass on that one because
that
that's...
whole angle
yeah.
for me is one of like the biggest. Like, I remember watching it and just being like amazed at like Hogan and Savage as a team.
That's
Like,
what got me
like,
in
I was
wrestling.
Like, oh yeah. And the whole like the shaking of the hands and oh yeah. And
Yeah.
like, go two big fucking pythons, like
Yeah.
the biggest pythons in the business, and just
You'll always win me over with some Mega Powers, Tony. Don't worry about that.
I love the Mega Powers. They were just so great, and then the whole implosion afterwards just made that one of the best feuds.
Oh.
Just like,
That's what got me hooked.
yep.
It's Now I remember watching some of those old videos, like the dusty ones in the corner of the room, like
What?
because you're about 5-10 years older than we are. So, you were watching it live. I had to go and like order the old VHSs. Be like, do you have those ones from back in WrestleMania 4 and 5, back in the olden days?
We're the same age, Charlie, so don't try to put yourself over.
I actually did watch most of the Mega Powers stuff from Blockbuster Video.
Oh, yeah. It's great. It's classic. I'll give you that one. Yeah, Mega Powers, good one.
Right, number 4.
Okay, Heart Foundation. The Heart Foundation. That was... Obviously, I'm biased. I'm obviously biased to Bret Hart because he's a Canadian icon.
Yes.
But they had a long run as a tag team, right? Way before they went single.
And we're talking specifically Jim and Bret, none of the different
No, because they were the Heart Foundation, the team, right? Like, the faction was called the Heart Foundation, but I mean, like, that early 80s tag team. They had 2 tag team title runs. One as a heel team when they had Jimmy Hart. That was like a bit more before my time, but even watching that back, they were pretty good as heels. But that early 90s when they were faces, they had that 2 out of 3 falls match with Demolition, Heart Foundation, awesome tag team.
Yeah, no, they are great. I mean, I joked before, but like I got into wrestling a couple of years after you got into wrestling, like so that was sort of like. That was just at the end of that. Like, I think Bret was just moving into the main event when I started watching. So the Heart Foundation, I mostly watched when they had like little reunions, or like when Bret did it with Owen and said like, we're still the Heart Foundation and stuff like this. So, but no, they're definitely fantastic wrestlers.
Oh yeah, great team.
Yeah, talking about like a tag team finisher, the Heart Attack.
It's still like
still the best.
Yeah, even like if you think about it, it might not be the greatest move, but it looked good, right?
Good, like and. If you do it wrong, it looks awful. But like the way like he like bounced from one rope to the other.
Oh yeah, and they were just that classic team with like a small, quick, technical guy and then a big powerhouse. Love the Hearts.
It's good, cool. So my number 4 is, I think in general when people talk about don't worry. I think in general when people talk right now about like the best tag teams in the world who are in their prime as we speak right now. I think many people go towards FTR.
Yeah.
Some people go towards the Young Bucks.
I know.
And then other people go towards the Usos.
Yeah.
So for me, the Usos, I think they're the best tag team that are actively in their prime as a tag team right now. Like whether the Hardys are still going a little bit or whatever else. Like the Usos are the best tag team in the world right now for me.
I think FTR might be a little bit above them, but the Usos are on the bigger show.
You would at least argue that even if it maybe happened like back when they were the revival, like if right now we got FTR versus the Usos, that might be one of the best tag team matches we'll ever see.
I think it would be.
Yeah. So, like the Usos managed to make main event level tag team matches in a company that didn't want main event tag team matches. Like them and the New Day. I don't have the New Day because they're technically a group of 3. So, but
the Usos are the best WWE tag team they've created in how long?
Oh, yeah, so long, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't even think of again. You've got the New Day that are also strong, but aren't a tag team; they're a trio. But the Usos just are that good. And to think like for the first 5-6 years, they would just go out there, do your little Uso thing, and just be a happy, smiley, and then you turn out like, wait, both of these fuckers can talk.
And when they came back and they were a little bit harder, you know, a little bit more. Yeah,
that
as
was
soon as
so
from that, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
these guys found it now.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
can both go in singles matches. Jay especially, like those matches, Jay versus Roman, where even though you knew 100% Roman was winning them,
Right.
you had elements where you're like, they're about to fucking put the belt on Jey Uso here. Like it was just.
I don't think anyone thought that.
In mid-match, you had moments where you're like, it feels like you start to kayfabe believe that something's going on. But no, I just think the Usos are the best tag team in the world right now.
Yeah, I think it's debatable. I think it's between them and FTR, but yeah, the Usos are really good.
Yeah. So number 3. Do you want to go number 3?
Sure. Now, I know I've said putting 2 main event guys together isn't what I consider to be a tag team, but these guys were a tag team. When they went back to WCW, the Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, because that's a tag team, right?
That's number 3.
That's my number 3.
That's my number 3.
Yeah? Nice. Too sweet.
You call me a mark.
I was literally like, when I was doing this, I was like,
we're cool, we're doing that thing.
I was like, Ozzy's probably going to put these in. I was like, but these they're great.
As a team, and if you watch some of those early Outsiders matches, they weren't just being like Razor and Diesel. Those guys were bumping for all the WCW guys. And I think that it was those two that really made the NWO, right? Like, getting Hogan was that big piece. But if it was any other 2 guys with Hogan, like, you know, the Nasty Boys or something like that,
it wouldn't have worked.
No, it would have been awful.
It was like the like charisma of like Nash and Hall like together, and the whole like starting promo going, hey yo, and like the whole pick everything, and then just like great matches as well. Like they put on great matches. Some of those ones with I think it's Harlem Heat. It's against Harlem. I think it's Halloween Havoc 96 or 97. It's one of the best tag team matches. They do some Halloween Heat, some Steiner Brothers. Yeah, like, amazing. It's just matches. Like they lost the belts a lot and they gained them back a lot. Like, it was like they were constantly like hot potato in it, but it made sense with the end of the war. Oh, absolutely. And just I liked their gear and everything like that. I'd love an Outsiders t-shirt. Oh yeah, the blood dripping. Outsiders were an awesome tag team. Charlie doesn't know who they are. Probably. You know who they are?
They were Glenn Jacobs and Rick Bogner.
Well, where do you come up with Rick Bogner? How do you? I know. How do you remember that name? Like that's.
I've seen because I know my wrestling history.
I've seen enough WWE documentaries. They're always on that. That's always.
I couldn't remember his name. Bomb.
Okay. My number 3.
Okay.
We should just do a list. It's like top 10 Outsiders.
Yeah. That'd be a good one.
So my number 3 is, sometimes they have tag teams, but sometimes you put 2 top singles guys together.
Yeah.
And you make them into a tag team.
Okay.
And then you give them a name.
Yeah.
And it feels like Mega Powers.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Same reason. Just they are just.
I just thought you were going with Jericho. I was like,
with who?
Jericho.
No, the only Miz tag team is Miz and Morrison. That's the top of that. That's the peak of Miz right there. Maybe Miz and Logan Paul, but no. Mega Powers. I mean, I think them and the Outsiders of all the sort of putting top singles guys together and making them a team of some description. Like those are your top examples of just what can happen when you're not just doing it because you've got nothing better for them to do, or you're like, we'll give them the tag titles, and then will they be able to coexist? Oh no, they split up. What a terrible, sad thing that was. Like it really feels like it was a proper team when the Mega Powers did it, when the Outsiders did it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, top 2.
Yeah, number 2. Tony, do you want to go number 2?
Yeah, speaking of putting 2 single stars together, when John Cena and Shawn Michaels, no, I almost had him with that. No, mine's just like, you didn't know? Like that, for me, just like, every time that came on when I was a kid, I was like, you better call somebody!
And those were 2 guys they put together, but they were going nowhere at the time, and then they made a tag team out of it, so that's a tag team.
Yeah, and that whole, before the X New Age Outlaws with like Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, like Terry Funk, Mick Foley run, that was amazing. That was the one that like got Triple H to be like, I want these guys on my side. This guy can talk, and this guy's Mr. Ass.
That's where you could see them starting to form new characters, right?
Those two were such strange enigmas, weren't they? Because they both worked really well in groups. Like I know you laugh a bit at Smoking Guns, but Billy Gunn has done like
it was hard to come back from that,
but he's done multiple group stuff, and then every time he goes solo, it bombs.
So
Road Dogg was the same. Like Road Dogg was great with Jeff Jarrett, he was great with DX, but every time he went solo, it bombed. And it's like, why does it not work when they don't have a guy behind them?
They need they're guys that need tag teams.
Yeah,
they need to be in a good tag team. Yeah, I can't believe this team hasn't been mentioned. Maybe it'll be your number one. Demolition.
Okay.
Demolition was my favorite tag team growing up. They were the music, the entrance, the look. Demolition, awesome tag team.
Oh yeah, one of the original greats, right?
Yeah.
What's your take on Demolition Crush? Most people hate him.
Didn't like it.
Didn't like it.
No, it ruined it. But then they turned heel, and then the Hart Foundation beat them, and then Demolition just drifted off into obscurity.
No, one of those classic tag teams that I think is like, even if again, it was one that was like they were on the way out when I was on the way in to wrestling. Like there's a few like that. There's one that hasn't been mentioned yet with the spiky shoulders that might turn up with one of you soon. That is in that group of like tag teams again. But no, Demolition. They held the belt for years, right?
Right. It was basically from like WrestleMania 4 until after WrestleMania 6. They were the tag team of that era, right? That's a long run.
Yeah. So for me, when it comes to that era, my number one tag team from that era, it's a little bit after that era, but in that sort of my growing up stage of watching wrestling, was probably, you could almost argue like the Proto Hardys of like those two high flyers that you want to get behind because they really give they have that flashiness in a world of big men.
Yeah.
The Rockers.
Yeah.
Like just as much as we talk about Jannetty being the
Jannetty.
It's hard to argue that before he threw his life away, that guy was fucking great.
And apparently they didn't, like a lot of people in WWE, like the management, they thought Jannetty was going to be the single star, not Shawn Michaels.
Well, he beat Shawn for the Intercontinental title, right? At one point and stuff. And like at that point, I thought like when Jannetty was with 1-2-3 Kid, I was like, this guy's still going to
be a guy.
Do something. And then it wasn't.
The only reason I didn't put the Rockers was because they never had a championship run.
Right.
But apparently they actually did beat
the Hart Foundation.
The Hart Foundation. And then something, the rope broke or something, and then they didn't say, like, they had it recorded, and then, okay, we're going to pretend that didn't happen. So, do you think things would have changed if they had had that?
They'd have had the championship?
Yeah, they had to have
I think probably, yeah, because, like, at that point, Shawn was, like, ready. Once they got rid of the belts, once they said, oh, that's not happening, Shawn was like, okay, I need to move on from this.
I want to go single.
Yeah, I want to go single, like, type thing. He was like, yeah, I need a belt, I need a championship, I need a run.
Would you say that's probably the best breakup of any tag team too of all time?
I would say for a group of two, it's that if you take away the Mega Powers as a tag team in this concept, definitely. I think you've got things like the Shield that you could argue was a really good breakup, the way that was done. Yeah. But obviously a group of three. The barbershop window is still something that people try to, like, people have put people's heads through Jericho's television screen. Yeah. Like, they're always trying to repeat it.
Yeah, it was because you didn't expect it, right? You never saw that kind of stuff back then.
Yeah, it was an extreme moment in a super PG show.
Oh yeah, and I loved Shawn after that. Yeah, for that early heel run because he did that. I'm like, this is my guy now. Yeah, a new mid card heel I can cheer for.
Okay, so number ones. So anyone want to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
To repeat.
All right.
Okay.
Steiner Brothers are my number one tag team of all time. Absolutely loved them.
Yeah, that was your team.
Yeah, they were my guys. They were just these big, like, in the collegiate thing. I watched them, like, I watched a lot of WCW, so like them with like Miracle Violence Connection. They had like some great matches with the Nasty Boys of all people.
Charlie loves the Nasty Boys.
But they were just guys that would go in, throw people about, and they looked like legit. Like every time, like just Rick Steiner's Bulldog, just like everything looks like it hurt. And that's especially like the matches he had with MVC, like they were just violent, like, and it was great to watch as a kid. Like I loved watching them. So yeah,
and that classic tag team.
Yeah,
I don't hate that. My number one is the greatest tag team of all time, the Road Warriors. They greatest tag team of all time. I didn't watch their early stuff at the time. You go back and watch some of that stuff when they were the Road Warriors. like in Japan, they came out to Iron Man. Their entrance was incredible. And like what I like about them is that those guys were just always a tag team, right?
Yeah.
They never separated and had singles runs. Really, they were the Road Warriors, and those guys were main event. They were a main event tag team.
They call it the Road Warrior pop, don't they? Like when someone has like a really massive pop, they call it the Road Warrior pop because that was the standard. They set the bar.
It's crazy.
Like the reason I've not got them on my list is because I only know them as the terrible version.
LOD 2000.
LOD 2000. Yeah.
Heidenreich.
Yeah. Like when they originally came back to WWE, but like
It's kind of sad.
yeah, it's sad to watch him like that because
Yeah.
like one of them's clearly an alcoholic and the other one's like doing all the work in the ring and stuff. And like I watched some of it in WCW as well where they brought like Hawk back instead of I think it was just Hawk or it might have been Animal.
No, Hawk was dead.
Yeah, they brought Animal back. It's just sad. Like I only know them from that. I've never gone back and watched many of the things, but I know of them being there.
Oh yeah, and the finish. It's one of the most dangerous finishes, but how odd! Like one of the best finishes in wrestling. Watch that.
No, I mean, I alluded to it a minute ago and then tried to stop myself saying the name just in case it was going to be someone's stuff.
Yeah.
Like when you talk about Demolition, I was like, another tag team that was just on its way out as I was coming in, like as a major force. So again, I sort of like it was the Legion of Doom would turn up every now and again, then they would disappear, and then the main
when you were watching,
the main memory that I have of them was with Heidenreich. It's
I don't remember that.
You don't want to remember it.
And like the Demolition were my favorite team as a kid, but when I go back and watch the Road Warriors, they had a way longer run, and Demolition was a manufactured team, right? Like WWF, Vince came up with it. They even like when they first were trying out the Demolition thing, a different guy was in it at the very, very beginning.
Right.
It wasn't Barry Darso and the other, an Axe, I forget his name. Bill Eadie or something like that. They had a different guy. So they were manufactured. The Road Warriors, they came up with that, right? They're two guys that grew up together in Chicago, made that team.
You know, funny enough, and this is child me talking, not child me talking. I think there was one thing that used to slightly bug me with the Legion of Doom, which is what they were. It was just like, they would come out with those spiky things, and like, this is amazing. These guys are going to, and then they wouldn't wrestle in the spikes, which obviously is completely impossible.
Yeah.
But like, child me is like, they're going to kill people with these spikes. It's going to be deadly, and then they just wrestle in trunks.
Have you ever seen when they did the spike in Dusty's eye?
I have not. No.
Probably like that.
Was that when he got fired for it?
He wasn't the booker anymore for that.
Right.
But he was like hot-shotting his booking then.
Yeah, like he was bleeding when he wasn't supposed to bleed.
Yeah, and it was on TV.
Yeah.
It wasn't like on a pay-per-view or a big event. It was on TV. And then some people say there was a big mistake turning the Warriors heel.
Right.
But that's still a pretty iconic angle.
Yeah. And they felt like they had that sort of Stone Cold essence to them. Like, like regardless of whether they're face or heel, they're just doing the same stuff.
No selling.
It's just whether they're doing it two heels or doing it two faces.
Right. They didn't change.
Yeah.
They were them.
Yeah. So my number one is a repeat. Like we said before with the Attitude Era stuff, you have the three tag teams. Some people are Dudley Boys people, some people are Hardy Boys people, and I'm an Edge Christian though.
Yeah, I should have saw that coming.
Yeah. I mean, it just is. I mean, that's when I got back into wrestling after my hiatus, that was one of the main things. That was Edge and Christian were, I think of all the people that were new to me when I returned to wrestling in 2000, 2001, Edge and Christian was like the biggest. I love these guys. These guys are fantastic.
That was a 5-second pause.
That was fun.
Yeah. Like the year when Edge won the King of the Ring, and I was desperate for it to be Edge versus Christian in the final. I was just like, they were both in that tournament. I was like,
oh yeah.
Did Edge win it, or was it Christian?
Edge won it.
Against Angle, right?
Yeah, because
Christian went and got the European title.
Yeah, because Christian lost in the semi-finals.
Yeah, because I remember they did that whole bit where like Christian was like, "This is so big for us that we won King of the Ring." Like that was such a good.
I think turned on him, right?
Eventually. Yeah, he got the European title. He was like, "Look, we have the European title. We have the King of the Ring." And he's like, "Yeah."
Yeah, no. So like, and also for me, it was like Edge was the big part of that because he is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time.
I can't believe I'm the only one that had the Road Warriors.
I think it is just because you've been watching wrestling a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Right? It's like just that 2 or 3 year period of watching wrestling back in WrestleMania 3-4 era, whereas I was about WrestleMania 8-9 when I started watching it live.
Yeah.
It was just a little bit like Demolition had just gone past its peak. Legion of Doom had just gone past its peak. People like we started getting into the gimmicky stuff, right? So I'm there growing up watching Smoking Guns, the Head Shrinkers, Men on a Mission. Like, those were the tag teams of my childhood.
Yeah.
I didn't have those type of tag teams that I was watching at
Right.
the time.
There were so many that I didn't get to mention the British Bulldogs.
I was gonna put
You
them.
guys should have, at least one of you should have put them.
They would have been all my honorable mentions.
Yeah.
British Bulldogs.
Didn't have a long enough run,
No.
but they were awesome too.
Yeah, there was a few like that. There's a few more modern ones.
Shame that they're both dickheads.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Dave Boys.
Yeah.
Apparently they're both absolute dickheads.
Owen and Yoko was one that I was thinking about for some point. I thought that was an intro of the weird thrown together
Yeah.
shouldn't work.
I
tag
kind of
teams.
like them too.
Yeah. Arcade Bro and Rated RKO. I thought both of those ways that those are the two times that Randy Orton has felt interesting is tagging with Edge and tagging with Broman. Riddle.
Yeah, fair enough. But the Road Warriors, greatest tag team of all time.
I mean, I think all three choices are not choices you can really argue with if you're taking for the fact of like people are free to have their opinions. It's not like what the fuck is wrong with you picking.
Yeah.
There's
And
no
Miz and Morrison.
At least he didn't put them first.
I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, let us know what you think. Let them know how good an Iconics versus the Miz and Morrison tag team main event extravaganza would be. I've been Charlie West. This has been the Supreme Ozzy Blaze and Tony. And thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, ring bells, tick boxes, do all the things you have to do. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.